What's up, family? How we doing? How we doing? Give everybody a chance to hop on. How we doing, family? What's going on? What's going on? Wave at me if you can hear me. Wave at me if you can hear me. What's up? What's up? I'm gonna try to wave at as many people as I possibly can. Wave at me if you can hear me. What's going on? Welcome, welcome. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? We just gonna chill here for a second till Jemar gets here. What's going on, family? Did you come in? Wave at me. How you doing? Destiny, how you doing? Do Evangelicals, what's going on? What's up? What's up, fam? Good to see y'all. Good to see y'all. Much love, much love. Ashley, what's going on? What's going on? Yeah. C. Huffman. Julian, my man, what's going on, brother? What's up, family? Bethany, how you doing? I see you. Shoot, Jemar. Jemar is the man. You know what? Jemar is the man. Let's bring him on. Let's go ahead and bring the man on. Go ahead and bring the man, the myth, the legend on. Hold up. Did I get him? Oh, no, it didn't. Okay. Here he is.
Here I is.
There he is. What's up, bro?
What's good with you, man? I like that sweatshirt.
Hey, man, we gotta get the unreleased heat. The unreleased heat. What's up, TC Token Confessions? What's going on, fam? Man, we just giving people a second to hop on, man. What's your day been like?
Wow, wild, bro. In an academic sense, so I'm buckled down, hunkered down, dissertating, and found some new connections. I'm gonna bring the heat with it. Bring the heat with it.
Hold up, wait. So wait. So catch this. You doing podcast, all this book tour, book, and dissertation.
You know, I'm trying to stay out of trouble.
All right.
In trouble.
Hear me better now?
Depending on your perspective.
Can you hear me better, Jemar?
There you go.
All right. I don't know whose headphones these are, but they not working for me. Okay, somebody needs to suggest some good headphones that I can use, because they not every headphone I use, they don't work. And Allie, don't come in here throwing shade. Don't come in.
What did Allie say?
She just did the moon emoji, her favorite emoji.
She keeps us honest. Lots of shade.
So hold up, man. So listen. So we did the Leave Loud episode, and a lot of people are responding to it. They're saying that it freed them, it liberated them. They're weeping as a result of it. You said it freed you. So here's my question. Why did it take you so long to tell this story?
That's a good question. The primary reason, I was still healing from a lot of the trauma and the wounds. So when I had to take a seat on the bench in ministry for like 3 years, because I knew I wasn't in a spiritually healthy place to get up in front of people and with authenticity preach the word of God and say, "Thus saith the Lord." There was too much woundedness, too much brokenness. I was still processing a lot of it, still trying to make sense of it. There's a sense in which I'm still going through some of this. So it wasn't like done, right? And then I think my journey has paralleled the witness's journey. So you remember in 2017 when we changed the name, that was about a lot more than branding. That was really about us and Christians like me leaving these white evangelical spaces. Not just knowing what we were leaving, but knowing what we were moving toward. Not just knowing who we'd been, but trying to figure out who we were going to be. So all of this is in process. The other thing, just to keep it a buck, I still hesitate to name names, right? Like, there's this reflex or instinct that gets ingrained in you that church unity means you can't ever call anyone out. You can't ever call anyone out. And so I'm still getting over it, because to be quite honest, there were a lot of details we could have added.
So when did you know you were gonna call some of those names? Because this wasn't we didn't really I didn't even want to over program it. So I really wanted it to be something where we talked openly about what you felt comfortable with. But when did you know? Was it just in that moment where you kind of felt that freedom? Because you didn't really tell me beforehand, hey, I'm gonna name this name, I'm gonna talk about this denomination. You didn't really tell me any of that before.
Yeah. I've said this before. We're living in times of immense moral clarity. And so for people who are dedicated to racial justice, the issues are not only clear, but they cry out for naming and accountability.
Hmm.
So I think the past 4 years of that previous president
Come on.
have spurred people like me who may have been hesitant on to name names and to tell our story publicly and to leave loud, as it were, because man, so many white evangelicals, and I'm talking from the pulpit to the pew, have doubled down on racism and white supremacy, most obviously in the form of Trumpism, but that's just one manifestation, right? Because Trumpism comes with all this other stuff, like you are anti-immigration from people from certain countries, the S-hole countries, right?
Hmm.
You are anti-science, anti-scholarship, anti-expert, so you don't wear a mask. One of these things is, I'm sure people can relate. I like knowing where people stand, right? So then you know who you're dealing with. At the same time, I don't know how much I like being able to know where you stand just by looking at you and whether you have a mask on or not.
Yeah, bro.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
And there was a report that just came out that the group least likely to get the vaccine, white evangelicals.
Yeah.
So it's not just Trumpism, it's everything that comes with it, right? So all of that made it clear to me, man. And then, like you said in the podcast, things are getting worse, not better. So we're hearing all the stories from the field. A lot of people don't realize that because we have this public platform through the podcast and the witness, we get emails, DMs, phone calls from around the country. And you probably more than me, of
Bro.
people being hurt. So it's like, we got to say something.
So leading up to this episode, we recorded, well, right after this episode, I should take that back. We recorded this episode on a certain day. And every day after, for that week that we recorded, I had at least one conversation with a Black pastor or ministry leader that was either leaving their church or enduring such profound racial trauma that they had no idea what to do.
Right.
It was for 6 days straight. Every day.
Yeah.
So I mean, you talk about receipts, man. I think we got the receipts, but I think beyond that, I think now it's how do we encourage people out of where they're at, give them the courage to leave, help them to understand that they're not by themselves. Because I think people don't understand this, man, but the dominant reality, the dominant emotion of Leave Loud is love. It is
Mm,
profoundly loving
mm,
to warn your sibling that the place either they are invested in or want to be invested in could deeply harm them. That's an act of love.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not an act of, that's not even first an act of defiance or resistance, first an act of love.
Mm,
Then we resist together. But it's
mm.
first an act of love. And I think people are missing that point. Can you talk about what you still feel for the people who are in those spaces? Do you have contact with them?
Some of them. I think you asked me a question in the podcast about, what did you lose or what did it cost you? And I don't think I said it at the time, but reflecting on it, one of the things that this whole ordeal of dealing with racism in white Christian spaces has cost me is the ability to trust.
Hmm.
The ability to trust.
Hmm.
So there's always this sort of
Hmm.
guardedness, especially around white Christians where I got to gauge you. I got to figure out your level of racial awareness and if me getting close to you is going to end up doing me some kind of harm, or even more so for my family too, right? Um, so, you know, when people are reaching out to me and they're still, by the way, that's been, you know, sort of the overwhelming response is people saying, you know, I see my story in yours, right? So that's where I keep saying, when we tell our story, it liberates others. And we have to tell our stories, right? So that gets back to your point. It's an act of love. It's an act of loving liberation to say that what I'm going through is similar to what you're going through. And by me speaking my reality, that gives you strength, encouragement, motivation to speak your reality. And that's been the overwhelming response. The other response is, you know, all these blasts from the past kind of things, people who knew me when. And on one hand, it's great connecting because you remember there were friendships there were relationships there, right? But at the same time, if you're still embedded in that, then I've got to press pause. Like, I mean, we can be nice, we can be cordial, but again, I don't know what's keeping you there. And you may have a calling from God to be salt and light and prophetic from within, and that's great. More power to you. By the way, that might only be for a season. I think a lot of people get caught up because they get called to a prophetic role from within an organization, a congregation, a denomination for a season, but they think that season is forever.
Mm-hmm.
And then you end up sort of getting pierced with many pains. But you might be there and you don't quite see the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's difficult to trust.
How do you know what I've been feeling, man? I feel this about a lot of things as it relates to when we speak. I feel weird when people who don't, and this is not a negative thing. So I don't want to make it seem like, oh, don't say anything positive. But I feel weird because sometimes I sit back and I say, it's good that you see us, but do you see people like us where you are?
Wow.
It's cool that you see us, but I think it's kind of easy to see us because we got platforms and people big us up, and it's de jour. It's in vogue to say, oh, I see them.
Mm.
Like I listened to that podcast. It was, well, do you see the people in your own space? And I think that's something I'm kind of wrestling with, man. Is how do you deal with that? And what would you say to people that are like, oh man, I see this, but you got to see people in your own space?
Obviously, you know, reform or reformation starts at home. So it's easy to see us, not just because we're visible, but because we're distant. So it's easy to say, oh, you know, thank you for your story. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your, you know, boldness, whatever. But what we've been through isn't in your church, isn't in your congregation. And so you can express some sort of sympathy, but it doesn't cost you anything because it's not close by to you. So you're right, you know, looking at your own context and saying, okay, where are the spaces where the people who might be going through this right now as we speak? But I would say as well, looking behind you at the trail of trauma that you've left. Right? Like, to me, what would be really powerful is if these churches, these seminaries, these individuals came back and said, we did you wrong. Here's how we want to repair. Or would you help us to think through repair, right? It's not, I think it is half-hearted to suddenly become aware of racial issues in your Christian context and then say, let's do something about it, and only look ahead without turning around and say, what have we wrought? What pain, what trauma, what church hurts, who have we hurt? And you know what? A lot of secular institutions are doing better at this than the church. even at a place as notorious as the University of Mississippi. Mind you, this was brought on by the so-called progressives within the university. There was a group of black students during the Black Power era, this is early 70s, who protested racism on campus. They faced academic penalties. Two of the leaders got expelled. They even got arrested and sent to Parchman, some of them, penitentiary. And in 2019, 2020, they tracked those folks down to make a formal apology and also to allow them to give their testimony, right? So, you know, what churches have done something like that? To go back and say, we did you wrong. Some have. I wrote about them in the How to Fight Racism, about one church in particular that had excluded black people from membership of the church. But how rare is that? And it even doesn't have to be on this grand scale, right? Like, you know, on an individual basis, who's left and why they left.
Sure.
So what are you doing? What are you doing about that? That's what I'm.
You know, we do this for Black Christians, man. And I think a lot of people, it's a lot of people that watch us, but we really do this for Black Christians. That's what we talk about at The Witness. You know, we say it. We're here to educate, encourage, and empower Black Christians to be free in soul and body. And one of the most encouraging things is that I feel now, at least even for the Black Christians who are staying in those environments, that there is heightened conversation. So that there is, you know, somebody tweeted me, it was like, hey, you know, Leave Loud is really prominent in my group chat today. And I don't know if he's in a predominantly white, but he was just saying, hey, it's really prominent in my group chat. And what do you say about these conversations? Because, or should I say, what conversation really put it over the top for you? Was there like one conversation or something that you can remember that really stood out to you, like, oh, I need to go, based upon the conversation you had with somebody or the general tone and tenor of what was happening around you?
I don't know if it was one. I think I was just sort of observing the carnage, bro, the carnage at the local level and nationally, the carnage, man. You know, just recently, what was really telling was the SBC president's statement on critical race theory. That was telling, but that was just that was sort of a culminating kind of documented factor. But the Cooperative Baptist Network, which is this far right fundamentalist, completely anti-CRT group, and you know, their whole ethos, their whole reason for being is they think they're purifying the SBC. And the reality is they're some of the main forces pushing black people and their allies out.
Yes, sir.
But isn't it telling that what they think is purifying the denomination is what gets rid of all the black people and people of color?
Not purifying, it's poisoning.
It's an interesting kind of purifying. And you know what? I mean, I was just thinking about this. You know a tree by its fruit. If these folks are so right about race and folks like us are so wrong, where are all the black folks in your church, in your denomination, in your fellowship? And you'll always have the tokens, right? But these are the folks who the vast majority of black people disagree with. And then you really nail down the question. Why aren't there more black people and people of color in your groups? And then it boils down to a couple of things. Either those black folks got it wrong and they just don't see the light, and we have to evangelize or do whatever with them, or there's something about what we're doing, how we're saying it, that's actually racist.
Yeah. And Catherine was saying, I think you said the Conservative Baptist Network. You didn't mean cooperative, did you?
No.
Okay, I think you might have said cooperative. So
Conservative.
But you got friends. So I was like, oh snap! So I didn't want you to miss that.
Thank you. Yes. Conservative Baptist Network. Yes, that's what I meant. Thank you for pointing that out. Not cooperative. Cooperative Baptist Fellowship is an interesting thing. Can I say this?
Yeah, fire away.
So Cooperative Baptist Fellowship, CBF, I think people should be taking a hard look at. They broke off from the SBC during the conservative resurgence, and especially over the issue of egalitarianism, complementarianism, right? So CBF ordains women and has women preachers, but they're also much more, just trying to be much more racially aware than typical SBC and certainly the Conservative Baptist Network, right? So I think at a time when a lot of people are ready to jump ship from the largest Protestant denomination in the U.S., there's an interesting story, at least, to be told about the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship,
Yeah.
CBF, because they went through this 30 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Man, we call this behind the mic. Can I do a behind the mic before we take some questions? It is the Spirit of the living God that we released this episode on Monday. And okay, so behind the mic, we talked about it we've been talking about it for a year doing Leave Loud. You, me, and Ali had a conversation in the text thread, and I remember where I was when you said, yeah, we talk about the quiet exodus, but y'all, we need to hashtag Leave Loud. And I remember I tilted my head to the side and said, oh, that's good. I don't remember where I was. I said, oh, that's good. And Ali was like, well, that's her like stereotypical response, like, well, and she was like, oh, we need to do something with that. And it's like y'all texted at the same time. We need to do something with that. And we were going to launch it fall. We were going to launch it top of the year. And then you and I had a conversation in Little Rock when we were there for your book release. And you said, I think it's time for me to tell my story. And I'm telling y'all, it is God, because it was Meghan Markle, you, Beth Moore. Like, and I mean, it's kind of evergreen, but I'm telling y'all, the timing of this, it is a Kairos moment. And I don't think people understand the importance of realizing where the Spirit of God is flowing.
Right.
And what God is doing in this moment.
Yes.
And I sat back, I think it was late last night, and I said, man, this was the time.
Yeah.
The time for us to do it.
I remember the Meghan Markle and Harry interview, and I have not seen my timeline blowing up about one thing like that in months. Like I was
I'll say real quick, because it's a lot of people. Let me just say this real quick before Jemar says this. We about to release something on that, not us, but Ali and a couple other folks. Okay.
Oh,
so
good.
All right, we're gonna do something about that. So if y'all, is the witness gonna talk about racism? Yes. Ali, tag Ali Henny at Ali Henny. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Jay.
What's up? Yeah. So it was amazing. I've not seen my timeline blow up like that on a single topic in a while, in a minute. I was surprised. I didn't know people were that invested in it. And then, the whole, so then we came out with this one. Beth Moore just came out with this big article about leaving the SBC, which is a massive deal for white evangelicals. That's massive. By the way, just shout out to Beth Moore. Y'all see what she does publicly. She has come alongside me, the witness, in real ways that y'all don't even know about. So appreciate that. Appreciate that for real. But yeah, last summer especially, I told you, man, moral clarity. Why was it then? Because we kept seeing people showing themselves. The Lord is sifting the church, this Kairos moment. That's what I sense in my spirit more than anything, is that people are taking sides. Justice takes sides. And people are declaring themselves when it comes to racial justice. And to me, it has just, in my adult life, never been clearer what Christians are standing for and what they're not. And that then to me makes it much more of an urgent issue than to separate. And I just don't see, because here's the other thing about the moral clarity. If you double down in a time like this, with the president we just had, with the issues we're dealing with, if you double down in a time like this, I don't see you changing anytime soon.
Yeah, if not now, then when?
If
Right.
not now, then when? That was and the other thing was the carnage of people continually getting hurt in these environments, and these organizations not being held accountable. So I started to feel the weight of the church finger leaving quietly, which then allows these organizations and institutions to continue doing what they're doing. I want these organizations to feel the sting of losing good people because of racism. And by the way, this spans races and ethnicities. So we are focused in the Leave Loud campaign on Black people, on Black Christians. But anybody who wants to express some sort of solidarity with racial justice is feeling the pinch and the pressure too. So I think until it's almost like the way a boycott works, right? Until you take your business elsewhere and let that business feel the sting of not having your support, they're not going to change and can do all kind of things to hurt you. But when we leave, and this, by the way, I think what prevents us as Christians, as people of faith from doing this is because we think, A, we're giving up on church unity, and B, it's some form of slander.
Yeah.
So A, giving up on church unity is, A, if I leave, does that mean I'm giving up on unity? Do I always have to stay? And is that what church unity is about? I don't think so, especially because a lot of these things are toxic relationships, right? The other thing is the truth divides. It cuts like a sword, right? Like a double-edged sword. And it's going to divide because some people are not committed to the truth. But if you are committed to the truth, there's increasingly less space for you in these organizations. And the other thing is, I think I mentioned this in the podcast, but Mark 6, where Jesus sends out the disciples 2 by 2, tells them not simply to shake the dust from their sandals, but does it as a testimony against them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're speaking a word against their rebellion, against their hard-heartedness, against their stubbornness. Right? So when are we going to do that? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, man. I talked about in the Don't Negotiate Your Dignity episode. Don't make it easy for we making it too easy. And I don't know if that's because we just been, I think it's cultural. I think a lot of times we're just trained to let the bridge be our back. Don't make it man, do not make it easy. And I think sometimes we're assuming that if we make a statement, if we say something, that eventually things are going to change. And until pressure is applied, I mean, until there is pressure, there's no motivation, there's no impetus to do anything about. Accountability requires some sort of confrontation. It requires some sort of pressure. That's what Leave Loud is all about. It is giving our Black brothers and sisters space to confront things that have been harming us for so long, for so many years. And I'm telling you, you're gonna we're gonna come back, we're gonna start gathering back at church post-pandemic. And it's gonna look different.
Let me tell you something. The other thing about Leave Loud is confidently asserting the righteousness of our cause. And I say that and still, sort of hear the voice in the back of your head. Don't get arrogant. Don't get a big head. Obviously, we always need to sort of check our hearts, but we have been gaslit to the point of distraction that our calls for racial justice are somehow off base.
Let me say this before you. I don't think people understand how much we are gaslit behind the scenes. You see it on social media. Social media is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
Anything that I've read the emails from people in proximity to us. I've read the emails. I've been on the phone calls. I've seen the text messages. So when we say gas, we're talking at an extensive, deep level. And so what tends to happen is, if there is not confrontation with the accountability, if there's not a public airing out of what has happened, people assume that because someone stands in distant solidarity or in safe solidarity, so there's enough of an arm's length. It's socially distant solidarity. you from a distance.
Way back. I got your back.
If people are like, okay, well, cool, this person on their team, this person on their squad, because they like this tweet, and it's like, well, no. And then you think these people are okay. So now we perpetuate harm because we have not warned you of the people who are staying away from us, and then behind the scenes stabbing us in the back. And we could have, people are like, oh no, I can't believe this. I'm like, we were tamed. Okay.
We were very tamed. We were very, I mean.
There's some stories I was like, man, if I drop this breadcrumb, I know Jay can go here. If I trip him into it, I was trying to trick you into telling one of these stories, and you were like, nope.
You probably give me too much credit. I probably didn't know what you were trying to do, but
you knew. We
have a lot more receipts we could use. But yeah, we one of the things about Leave Loud is say it with your chest, because we actually have the biblical standing to do so. When we're talking about justice for the oppressed, we're not making that up. We're not following the lead of somebody who doesn't read the Bible. We're reading the Bible. We're getting this from Jesus when he said, I came to preach good news to the poor and freedom for the captives, right? Like, that is something that we can confidently assert, not because it's coming from us, but because it's coming from Jesus. Yeah. Because it's coming from the word. And we have been gaslit so much. Somebody in the comments said we've been gaslit into oblivion. Where we think, we get so plaintive, so hesitant, so tepid about our assertions around issues the Bible is clear on. Because we know the pushback, we know the gaslighting, we know the deflection, we know the minimizing. And so Leave Loud says, no. Actually, we have biblical standing to say this. You're the ones who need to demonstrate from the word, from tradition, from experience that you're right. Yeah. Don't turn it around on me like I've got to prove this, when you can open up the Bible and trip over verses about justice. But you saying, one heart at a time, just preach the gospel, all that stuff. No,
we're not ready. And that's what Eddie Gloss says in his book, Begin Again. He's talking about James Baldwin. He says that he was actually talking about the idea of the witness. And he said, Baldwin, for Baldwin, the idea of being a witness it means to tell the story. And what he said later on was also that not just tell the story, but confront the idols.
Yes.
Confront the idols that the country, the nation holds dear. So that's what we do. We tell the story. We are the witness.
And the idol for the white American U.S. church is so often Christian now. I don't want to dwell here too long, but if
we're gonna say that for the pod, man. We gotta save that because I know you got some new dissertation heat. That's what that means.
Sort of. I'm studying Black thought for the dissertation.
I knew it. I knew it.
I can't dwell in that space mentally. Y'all, I had to change my dissertation topic because I was going to do a biography of a certain Black evangelical who's still in the dissertation, which is why I'm not saying it now. But it was going to be all about the white racism he experienced within these Christians. I couldn't do that mentally because I do this work all day, every day. And I just wrote a book, Color Compromise, about it. I was like, I get it.
Flex, bro,
I
flex.
get that history. So I had to switch it to where I'm taking Black Christian thought on its own terms. This is what Black studies as an academic discipline is about. It's saying that Black people, Black life, Black thought, Black actions exist independently and on its own. We don't simply exist in relation to white people. And I think that's some of what the witness is trying to convey, is that Black Christians don't simply exist in relation to white Christians. We got our own things going on that are worthy of thought, study, care, attention. This is what the broader press often misses, because the what sucks all the air out of the room in terms of topics and attention is what white evangelicals are doing. And even to the extent that you talk about Black Christians, it's in relation to white evangelicals and white Christians. So we're trying to do a new thing, really not a new thing. Other Black people have done it before, but we're trying to do something at the witness that says, no, we can actually put, you know what? It's Toni Morrison. Right?
How many times, Ali can put it in the chat, how many times do I quote Toni Morrison behind the scenes? My world is a Black world. Listen.
She got it. She said she's not going to, she's going to treat that which has been marginalized as if it is the center. And she's going to let people come to her rather than going to them and addressing something different.
Every day I'm saying something from Toni Morrison. Yo, we got to save some of this for the pod. What questions y'all got? This is dangerous, but what questions y'all got? Especially Black Christians, I would love to hear your questions, because I know this is personal for a lot of us. What's next, bro? What's coming up next week, bro?
Y'all are not ready. Okay, so we're telling Tyler's Leave Loud story next week. I'm excited about this, y'all, because I don't know Tyler's story. This man is so private. He keeps everything on the DL. I got to find stuff out about you when you just randomly drop a comment in a conversation or something. And so I am intrigued about the ins and outs, the details of your Leave Loud story, because as embedded as Tyler is in the Black church and as much as he loves Black people, he knows the most far right white evangelical Christian subgroups there are out there. And he's got a lot to say. Again, I think...
Yo, Kevin said, put that Kurt Cameron pick up. You with Kurt Cameron. Yo, I got some, it's some worse, Entrenched. Y'all just don't know.
The homeschooling crowd, y'all are going to eat this one up.
Don't be y'all. Okay, my friends roasting me in the comments. Don't look at the comments. All right, we got a don't look at the comments policy for the next like 10 minutes. Someone asked, Jemar, how you doing mentally?
That's a complex question. So the dissertation is extremely stressful because it's like this thing constantly hovering over your head that you always feel like I should be writing. And for honestly the past, almost 2.5 years since The Color of Compromise came out, I haven't been able to just take the traditional life of a grad student and focus on my studies. Trying to do that now. So that's a constant thing. These past 2 days, I haven't slept well because there was just so much to process. And it wasn't that anything negative had come my way. It was just a lot to process.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process.
Yeah. A couple of people are asking this question, and I think this kind of ties in with what you were saying. My sister LaShawn, she said, how do we process when and how to tell our own Leave Loud story? And Sean, what's up, Sean? He had kind of talked about that a little bit too. Like, how do you process when and how to tell your own story? Because I think that's one of the things that a lot of people are asking now is, how do I tell my own story? How do I talk about my own situation? And what do I do now?
Yeah. and I'm sure you got some thoughts on this. What I would have to say is you tell your own story in your own time, in your own way. So no shoulds, no oughts, no, this is about your journey and your healing. For me, I've shared parts of it when I was comfortable, but I don't know that I could have shared my Leave Loud story before now in sort of this sort of scope, right? Submit an article to
I was gonna get to that. I'll
Allie.
do my closing.
Great. I would start small, so you might want to start semi-privately if you have a prayer journal or a journal, and just processing it, putting words to it for yourself and God. You might then want to extend it to a trusted circle of friends or family, right? So you can process it in conjunction with people who you feel safe around. I would certainly, if at all possible, have a good mental health therapist. And I think one of the things we don't mention often enough is that not all mental health therapists are equally skilled. And so I've had to change therapists several times, not because any of them were malicious or doing active harm, but because I knew there was just a corner to turn that somebody else we could get there. So mental health therapy, and then do it in the way you want in terms of the medium. Leave Loud doesn't always have to be like social media public. Leave Loud could mean at your organization, and nobody knows about it but your congregation or your church or your denomination, whatever. But also it could mean writing. It could mean a podcast. It could mean a video, right? So the medium doesn't have to be standard. This is just Jemar, you may disagree, but I think what we always have to do is constantly check our hearts to make sure that we are leaving Loud out of a place of healing and not of a place of woundedness. I mean, there are wounds there, but I mean unhealed wounds, right? That I don't think is healthy. I think it is healthy to process those unhealed wounds with people you trust and people who are trained to help you. But if you do your Lead Loud in the midst of that, it can be damaging. It's these people who process on Twitter or whatever. You've seen that.
Yeah, that's a pastoral word. I also think people have to answer the question, why am I doing this? And what's a successful, or what is a healthy end game for this? Because I think sometimes we just tell it, and I'm like, well, it may have been more effective when you were at a different space so that you can see clearly. I was telling somebody this recently, and he's processing whether or not to leave. And he was like, okay, so I'm trying to think about this. I'm trying to think about that. I was like, I actually think, bro, you need to get out as quickly as possible so you can see clearly about what's happening, because you can't see clearly. It's just confusion right now. A lot of people are more confused about where they are and what their space is doing and how to process it. And so I think some space to be able to see clearly what has happened
That's good.
Might be healthy for you.
Yeah. So getting some space, some distance from that place of trauma.
Yeah.
Which the flip side of that is getting to a place of stability and healing, right? So one of the reasons I can talk about Leave Loud is because we've got the witness as sort of a landing place, where we're not just out here as, the one sheep wandering around, vulnerable to wolves.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I'll just say this, like, Jemar has a squad behind him.
Now. Yeah.
Now, I'm just saying, so if it's a problem, he got it. It's different when you by yourself. It's just different. And it's something you have to think about, You don't want to just tell your story and be brave and courageous and then sacrifice yourself. but we got a crew.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so if anything goes sideways with Jemar, we there with him, you know. So if you don't have that, it's like, well, you know, it may be time for you to process what that looks like. Just a couple of more here. One said, okay, let me see if I can actually read this out loud. How do you know, or how do you process it's time to leave when you're under exhausting white leadership who doesn't give you equity? It's time to go. It's time to go, my guy. Like, hey, get out. That's it. And listen, there was somebody. It was somebody on one of your posts, Jemar, who was saying, "Hey, it was an SBC. My pass is SBC." And someone replied to, "Leave tonight." Immediately. Doesn't give you equity. Exhausting. Bye.
I think,
Go, y'all.
again, if they're not changing now, what do you think it would? If they saw Derek Chauvin put his knee on the neck of George Floyd for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, and they're not, and you're still exhausted. If they saw this president, this past president, do everything he did, you remember he said it was at Dordt College, now University in Iowa. I could stand in the middle of Madison Avenue, Fifth Avenue, whatever, and shoot somebody, and I wouldn't lose any support. Oh, that's real talk. And you're in an environment right now that makes that statement true. You're among a people right now that makes that statement true. It seems like, right? So anyway, my point is, at this point, March 2021, err on the side of action.
Yeah. You know, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about this, hopefully in the book. But I think people need to hear also, it's not your fault. This is not your fault, family. Their actions, you are not responsible for that. You need to hear it. You need to
say that.
You need to hear it. It's not your fault, you know. And so when you leave, don't feel like you failed because they failed.
Ooh, say it again.
When you leave, don't feel like you failed because they failed. It's not your fault, fam. It's not your fault. And I think people really need to hear that more. And I think they don't have community around them and encouraging them. It's not you, it's them. So.
And if somebody told me this recently, you don't owe them anything else.
Woo!
You don't owe them anything else. You don't owe them
quickening.
any more of your time. You don't owe them any more of your time, any more of your emotional labor, any more of your letter writing, conversations, theologizing. You don't owe them anything else. So you don't need to feel guilty about extricating yourself from that space.
Be free, beloved. Be free, beloved.
Free.
Okay. Man, that got me going. Woo!
Somebody asked about spiritual disciplines.
Okay, yeah. Hold up. Let me try this. What are your spiritual disciplines looking like in this season, and how do you help work through all this? How do they help you work through all this?
Are you answering?
Oh, I thought you was mad.
Bro. You the pastor. You the pastor.
Are you? Don't play with me. Don't play with me.
You know what? This whole thing, we talk a lot about decolonizing your faith, and the flip side of that is expanding, right? Expanding your faith, expanding your definitions. What spiritual disciplines have looked like for me is a lot more everyday practices of healthy living.
That's how I was.
Like, it's going off tonight. So, especially when it was warmer, me and my short legs were outdoors running. Like, that was a spiritual discipline. I'm slow as can be. Dante Stewart needs to quit posting his times.
If Dante don't stop running.
This dude is averaging like 7 minute per mile pace. Man, get out of here. I'm gonna he's gonna run laps around me, but it's okay.
Gonna confront that brother.
You
We
know,
confront that brother.
humble bragging, humble brag. If I was that young, I could run like that too.
You ain't that old.
Yeah. So yeah, the physical exercise, making more time to spend with my family because I tend to be a workaholic. Somebody said this on Twitter: you don't need permission to rest.
Hmm.
And I've thought about it every day since then. You don't need permission to rest. If you feel like you need to rest, rest. You don't need to ask permission or get anyone's okay to rest. And that is a more of a psychological practice than anything.
Wow,
right?
bro.
Because it could be reading. Oh, here's a self-care thing I did. I bought a Kindle Paperwhite.
Yeah.
Because I got sick of looking at the glowing screen on my phone or my computer, and I hadn't been reading anything fiction, all nonfiction about racism, history, all that stuff, which is great, but it weighs on you. So now, even just something as simple as a handheld device to help me read fiction is huge for me. Also, I began to realize I'm an introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert. So it's not like I always have to be talking around people. But I did realize after a year of a pandemic, I miss hanging out with people. And so just being more intentional about socially distanced with some folks in my town, but also just phone calls. It don't always have to be Zoom, by the way, y'all. Just letting you know. A good old-fashioned phone call will be just fine. I like to walk and talk, so that works for me real well. But yeah, all of that stuff. So point being, spiritual disciplines. What white evangelicalism taught me is that you got to be in a comfortable chair in a quiet room, reading your Bible with your prayer journal, and that's it.
So yeah, and this is a key point. Like, we have to decolonize our spiritual disciplines and our view of them. One of the things that I think we've missed is that celebration is a spiritual discipline, and we have denied that for a year.
Woo! Yes.
And it is so tied to our communal culture to celebrate together. And I think we need to pay attention and take care that we do not allow people, particularly white evangelicals, to disciple us in disappointment.
Oh, what?
So they disciple us into expecting disappointment. So we receive it, we take it. And we don't ever celebrate things. We don't ever say that we're proud of ourselves for things. We don't ever receive encouragement for things. We don't ever take compliments for things because we've just been disabled in just simply being disappointed all the time or disappointed in ourselves.
Oh.
So for a year, you haven't had the opportunity to celebrate, because of, the panoramic, right? So you don't have the opportunity to celebrate. So you have to, man, celebration is a beautiful thing. And how do you replicate celebration? And the healthiest people I've seen are the people who can find those pockets of celebration and those moments of celebration. And we just, because we're dealing with so much racism and difficulty, and this is our work, and it's like, well, it's okay for you to celebrate. It's okay for you to, man, drink the wine, like eat the fat. Okay, like do that,
Wow.
And I think we just taught ourselves that that's not allowed. And again, especially Reformed theology has discipled us in this over infatuation with this masochistic suffering. It becomes, let me chill. I felt it rising up.
It's true. It's true.
Stop. It's okay for you to celebrate. Anyway.
You don't need permission to celebrate.
Yeah. It was rising up in my spirit, and I put it down, y'all.
One of the things I just wanted to make clear, one of the things I did not talk about because it was my Leave Loud testimony, but I would be remiss not to say that race is gendered. race is gendered so that the misogynoir that our sisters experience, all that stuff about racism that I was talking about, layer on top of that sexism and patriarchy, and that's what Black women have to deal with. So one of the things I'm thinking about now to a greater degree, I was so myopic in these churches and seminary spaces. It was just about me and the entree that I had, the opportunities that I had in these spaces. And my wife saw this way before I did and didn't have the positional advantage of being in an ordination process or even being on staff or a student at seminary, right? So she's just getting the cultural part of it, which was horrible, just toxic, right? You want to talk about the pressure to conform to a certain image of womanhood and femininity. She went to one women's Bible study.
I bet she ain't never go back.
Never.
She never went.
Didn't really want to go in the first place. Just was being nice to somebody. And confirmed everything, right? So our sisters over at Truth's Table, Michelle, Akemini, and Christina have all experienced this times 1,000 in these spaces. So I just wanted to name that.
And in 2 weeks, Allie's Leave Loud story too. So
y'all not ready. Mine was just the amuse-bouche.
Stop saying that. No. Stop saying that word. Stop.
It was just the appetizer. It was just getting y'all ready.
Should we save this? Is this just unreleased for the people? All right, we gonna save this. I think you want to save it.
This
I
live?
think you should save these things.
I don't know. What do the people say?
I don't know. I don't know. Part of me is like, you had to be there, but nah, I'm gonna say it. I'll say it. Listen, family. We love y'all. For real. We love y'all. We really love y'all. And we wake up every morning and we go to bed every night, and a prayer for y'all is on our lips. It's in our heart. Our souls feel the weight of what you all have been through and are going through. And we stand with you. This is why we do what we do. And the pain that you're feeling, I just want to say it's valid. We see it. We feel it. We carry it with us. And we just want to let you know you're not alone. You're not alone. So we love y'all. We do. That's why we do it. We wouldn't tell our stories if y'all weren't here. Yeah. Jemar, thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Love you, man. All right, peace.